Fear Street Prom Queen is an American slasher movie directed by Matt Palmer. The movie stars India Fowler, Suzanna Son, Klein, and Ariana Greenblatt. Set in 1988, the plot focuses on a mass killer who targets prom queen candidates on the night of their senior dance. Admittedly, I'm unfamiliar with the Fear Street franchise. I'm aware of their existence, of course, as it was difficult to escape the hype when they initially released. I was worried I would have to watch the original trilogy before watching this feature. However, with a new director at the helm, it seems like this was heading in a new installment, but it is still connected to the other movies. However, it doesn't fully require you to watch the other movies beforehand, which was handy for me as a newcomer. So, what is this movie like in comparison to the plethora of other horror releases in the last couple of years? Well, I'll tell you. Firstly, I'll start with the performances. Firstly, talking about India Fowler, who plays the main girl in this, essentially being the role of the final girl. There isn't an awful lot to her role. She does a fine job at playing into the idea of being an outcast, even though she doesn't look like the type of girl that would be relentlessly bullied as her character is in this. But anyways, whenever she's in moments of peril, she does a decent job at conveying the fear anyone would be feeling, as it's believable enough. I've only ever seen her in one other movie, which was the latest installment in the Strangers franchise. I don't exactly remember her in that movie. It's one of those movies I do try to forget, but with that sort of resume, horror seems to be the genre this actress goes for, so I'd say she'll do a good job in other ones as well. Suzanna Son is in this too, mainly known for Sean Baker's movie Red Rocket. She plays the best friend of India Fowler's character, and for the type of character they write her to be, she's okay in the role. They make her the weird, ambiguously, possibly lesbian best friend, which is weird for a Fear Street movie, not to make its queer angle more center stage. Anything she does in this is no fault of her own, of course. It's mainly down to the screenplay, which allows her to have a couple of moments of overacting and sometimes just saying stuff that I can really only describe as cringe, but like I said, that is no fault of hers in the slightest. Ariana Greenblatt is barely in this movie. Sorry if that's a light spoiler or anything, but I genuinely can't think of anything to say about her performance for how little she has to do in this movie. They basically make her the Drew Barrymore of this thing, and for the time she's in it, she kind of does the same shtick she's been doing in every role she gets, and I'm honestly getting tired of her being typecast as this type of character. I hope as she gets older, she just breaks this typecast eventually. Fina Strazza plays the main mean girl in this, and for this type of character to be her main motivation, I suppose she does it about as well as you could with the material given. Whenever she has to be cruel to people, she goes all out, seemingly even taking joy in bringing misery to these people. And you could tell by the expressions on her face that she really does relish in this fact. So I thought the girl did a good job of conveying that, no matter how ridiculous it would be, which I will go into detail soon. Klein, again, is someone I would like to talk about more, as he's someone I kind of did push myself to watch this movie for. He's known, of course, for American Pie fame, but sadly he just isn't given much to do here. He's in about 2 scenes, and his role is to be a teacher and a dad to the mean girl, and he does just fine. I realize, performance-wise, I don't really have much to say about everyone. I don't think it's the worst aspect of the movie. No one gives a truly terrible performance or anything, but make no mistake, even if a movie has mediocre performances at best, that still isn't really a good thing. For me, it's everything else about this movie that just didn't work. So why don't I just move on to the plot of this thing? In order to fully talk about some of the problems I had with this thing, I do have to delve into some spoilers, so as usual, if you haven't seen the movie, I recommend clicking away now. However, if you don't care for spoilers, then stick around to hear me complain. So as soon as this movie starts, I'm talking about 30 seconds in, we have a nighttime scene that is just lit horribly. You're not able to see anything. This ends up being a common thing for a majority of the nighttime scenes in this. The main plot isn't anything new to the slasher genre in the slightest, and what's funny is there's meant to be a big twist on who the killer is, but with the way the movie is structured, it's insanely predictable. The movie centers around the candidates for prom queen getting killed, so you immediately know it's the main girl that is at least orchestrating this so that she could win. They just did a bad job at making it seem like a mystery in the slightest. There's an early scene too, which I thought was was stupid and mainly boils down to the writing, which is one of the worst parts of this thing for me, by the way. In this scene, the mean girl asks the main girl who is working as a waitress in a restaurant for some more food, as if this is meant to be a dig at the main girl, but it doesn't make any sense how this would be an insult since you're just wasting more of your own money. And the scene just ends after that. It's not as if they leave without paying. It was just stupid. There's a moment in this where it's meant to be a sort of transformation for the main character. It's like those scenes in movies where the girl takes her glasses off and the movie's mind says that means that she is suddenly hot. They do that in this movie, but all the girl does is get winged eyeliner and puts her hair up, and they treat it like it's this massive transformation. It is insanely dumb. Not too long after this, her and the mean girl engage in a dance battle, which seems like a tropey thing for an 80s style movie, so it does in fairness make sense to have it here. Doesn't mean it was good to watch, because the moves the two of them pull off are incredibly embarrassing, and it's probably the worst scene in the whole movie, honestly. Towards the end of the movie, there's a point where India Fowler and Suzanna Son's character are hiding from the killer. They spend forever in this room as if they have no way to escape, but the movie shows us that there's a window in this room which they would have so easily seen as soon as they were in the room. I don't care how scared they are, they're just fucking around for no reason. Speaking of the killer, I think I will at least say this, I'm not going to spoil the identity of the killer, but like I said, with the concept of the movie, you can probably fucking guess who it is. However, when it gets to the reveal, it's just so stupid and it isn't built up well at all. Then once the killer is revealed, we spend another 20 minutes of runtime painfully waiting for them to reveal the next twist, which is somehow even more obvious from how it's set up. The writers probably thought they were so smart, but they are not. The writing is probably the main issue I have with this thing, as it is what makes the plot so tedious. We have a very simple setup for a slasher. They attempt to hit so many tropes that sure are common in the genre, but aren't done insanely well here. There are so many lines in this movie that are clearly thrown in to see if the writers could shove as many 80s references in as they could. Some lines are either ripped off from other 80s movies, or they just attempted to see how many 80s phrases they could shove in. What's funny is most of the actors or actresses just don't look like they would belong in the decade at all. They all look too perfect, and they have severe case of just looking like influencers. It became distracting most of the time. Apart from shoving a lot of references in, a lot of the writing features some pretty bad lines with line deliveries that don't help hide how bad they are. The movie isn't shot exceptionally well, which is no surprise with this being a Netflix movie. It doesn't try to emulate the style of being an 80s movie, apart from some segments which are meant to be filmed through a camcorder, even though they obviously just threw a filter over the whole thing. While it can have the occasional neon colours draped over a lot of the scenes, I don't think a majority of this thing is lived very well either. As this is a horror movie, an aspect I have to talk about is if the movie is scary or not. Well, either I'm just desensitized to horror in general, or this movie just isn't scary at all. It definitely goes for a more goofy tone, but not fully letting itself be an enjoyable amount of camp, which I think I was expecting more before watching this. An aspect of the movie I actually did think was fun, surprisingly, was the kills. For the most part, at first glance, they seem to be done practically, which made the kills actually look pretty good. They were gory and slightly creative for the most part. They ended up being the highlight of this train wreck. Most of the scares in this thing rely on really cheap and obvious jump scares, and even with that, there isn't even that many of them. This usually would be fine if a horror decided to shove jump scares aside in favor of creating a creepy atmosphere, but there's none of that to be had here. The score on this one is honestly such a bore. It was composed by the Newton brothers, known for making scores for movies like Dr. Sleep, and most recently the Five Nights at Freddy's movie, and seemed to do music for Mike Flanagan on a lot of his other projects. If any talent the pair do have, it's just wasted here, as it feels like they were asked, hey, just go listen to a Stranger Things soundtrack and do that. Because in Netflix's eyes, it's not ripping off if you're ripping off yourself. It wasn't very creative at all, and bland if it was anything. Overall, I didn't like this thing. It's hard to fully engage in a Netflix product as they churn out so many useless pieces of media. I can tell from reactions to this thing that a lot of fans are disappointed in this. Some borderline even hating it. A lot of fans are talking about the odd queer erasure that goes on in this movie. I suppose that's an aspect of the other movies, but it seems to be just subtext here. I'll probably check out the other movies down the line, but having this one be my introduction to the franchise, it's not the best place to start. I'm giving Fear Street Prom Queen 2 stars. It's such a dumb, not scary, borderline waste of time that really serves no purpose for existing other than Netflix squeezing more juice out of an IP they bought. And since this is based on a book series, I can see them milking this thing for all it's worth, not caring about its quality in the process. At least this time, this looks like it's the only new installment for a while. I won't expect to see another one next week. I remember when the original trilogy released, their whole gimmick was a new movie being released every week until the trilogy was complete. But that doesn't seem to be their game plan here. And honestly, thank God, because if this is how they were choosing to start it, it's certainly not the best beginning. From what I'm seeing, there is a change in director between this movie and the original trilogy. So if Netflix intends on making more of these things and they want viewership to really be pulled back into the franchise, I think it's best that they bring back the original director. It had its fans for a reason, so it's probably a good idea to have your movie made by someone who is at least competent in making it. I don't recommend this. I guess if you're a horror fan, it'll scratch an itch for you, as it does have some pretty neat looking kills, but that's all it really has going for it.